Your dreams were once considered urgent messages from the divine. For thousands of years, our ancestors did not simply wake up from a strange dream and forget it. They believed it held a secret code, a vital prophecy, or a warning from another world. This video is a journey into the ancient art of dream interpretation across cultures, a historical mystery spanning continents and millennia. You will discover the specific, often surprising, methods used from Mesopotamia to China to decode these nightly visions, and what those methods reveal about how our ancestors saw the universe and their place within it. We will see how a dream about a raven could decide the fate of a kingdom, and how sleeping in a temple could cure a disease. What universal symbols have whispered to dreamers in every era, and why did some cultures fear dreams as demonic tricks while others worship them as divine dialogue? What do you believe your own dreams are trying to tell you? To find the world's first dream interpreters, we must travel to the dusty plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Here in ancient Mesopotamia, the art of decoding dreams was not a mystical hobby. It was a state-sponsored science. The earliest known dream manuals were not written on papyrus or parchment, but meticulously pressed into soft clay. These tablets, some dating back over 4,000 years, were discovered in the ruins of great libraries, most famously within the royal library of King Ashurbanipal in the city of Nineveh. This collection, known as the Assyrian Dream Book, is a stunning window into the ancient mind. It presents a highly organized system, a formal guide for royal priests and scholars tasked with a crucial duty protecting the king and, by extension, the entire kingdom. Dreams were not seen as random neurological firings. They were urgent bulletins from the unseen world. Each dream was catalogued and given a definitive label, a good omen or a bad omen. The interpretation was rarely about personal psychology. It was almost always about public destiny, a forecast for the health of the state, the success of a harvest, or the outcome of a coming battle. For instance, the tablets tell us that if a king dreamed of eating a raven, it was a very bad sign indeed, likely foretelling the death of a high official or a grave illness. Why a raven? In Mesopotamian belief, these birds were often associated with death and the underworld, so to consume one was to ingest a dire fate. This system reveals a fundamental belief. The boundary between the waking world and the dream world was porous and dangerously real. A dream was a direct communication, but the sender could be a benevolent deity offering guidance or a malicious demon planting a curse. The dream interpreter's job was to determine which force had sent the vision and to prescribe the correct ritual, prayer, or offering to secure a favorable outcome or avert disaster. In this way, a king's nightmare could trigger a national day of sacrifice, and a single symbolic image etched in sleep could shape the policy of an empire. Across the desert sands in ancient Egypt, the dream became a sacred bridge to the gods. Here, the interpretation of dreams, known as oneromancy, evolved into a formal and sophisticated spiritual practice. The Egyptians believed dreams were not just messages but direct conversations with the divine, a nightly opportunity to receive guidance, healing, or a glimpse into the fate that awaited in the afterlife. This was not a passive hope, it was an active pursuit. To seek a divine dream, an individual would undergo a ritual known as incubation. They would purify themselves through fasting and prayer, then travel to a sacred temple complex like the famed Serapeum at Memphis, dedicated to the god Serapis, a deity specifically associated with healing and dreams. The seeker would sleep in a special chamber within the temple precincts, a liminal space between the human world and the realm of the gods. The air thick with incense and the weight of centuries of prayer, they would wait for a visitation. The expected dream was often a prescription, a vision from a god like Serapis or the deified architect Imhotep that would diagnose an illness and reveal its cure. This practice shows us that for the Egyptians, healing was a holistic process, involving both the physical body and the spirit. with the dream serving as the diagnostic tool of the gods themselves. Perhaps the most famous political dream from Egypt is recorded on the dream stele, a stone slab erected between the paws of the Great Sphinx at Giza. The story goes that a prince named Thutmose, exhausted from a hunting trip, fell asleep in the shadow of the half-buried, sand-swept monument. In his dream, the Sphinx itself, representing the sun god Harmakhit, spoke to him. It promised Thutmose the kingship of Egypt if he would clear away the desert sands that had nearly consumed the statue. Upon waking, the prince fulfilled the bargain. He restored the Sphinx, and in time he ascended the throne as Pharaoh Thutmose IV. This was not a private omen, it was a public decree carved in stone for all to see, using a dream to legitimize royal power and demonstrate a ruler's divine favor. Professional dream interpreters in Egypt were almost always priests, scholars deeply versed in the complex language of symbols drawn from their rich mythology and daily life. A dream of a flooding Nile might predict abundance, while a dream of a withered tree could warn of personal decline. The symbolism was inextricably linked to their environment, their agriculture, and their profound beliefs about the journey after death. To dream of crossing a river on a boat, for instance, might not just reflect a daily activity. It could be seen as a preview of the soul's voyage through the underworld. In this culture, every dream was a multi-layered text, a personal narrative woven from the threads of cosmic myth, where the gods used the familiar imagery of the earthly world to communicate eternal truths. While Egypt perfected the temple dream, the Greeks transformed it into a holistic system of medicine. In ancient Greece, the most famous centers for dream interpretation were not just temples but hospitals of the soul, known as Asclepiae. These were sprawling sanctuaries dedicated to Asclepius, the god of healing, and they operated on a powerful principle that true cure came through divine visitation in a dream. A patient seeking relief from illness, blindness, or chronic pain would first undergo purification rituals, bathing in sacred springs and offering sacrifices. Then, as night fell, they would be led into the most sacred space of all, the abaton. This was a long, enclosed portico where the sick would lie down to sleep, enveloped by the quiet of the sanctuary and the collective hope for a miracle. The belief was that the god Asclepius himself, or one of his sacred snakes, would visit them in their dreams. The encounter could take many forms. Some dreamers reported the god touching their afflicted body part, others saw him performing a symbolic surgery, and some simply received a clear prescription for a herbal remedy or a change in diet upon waking. These dream cures were then recorded and often inscribed on stone tablets displayed at the sanctuary, serving as testimonials to the god's power. This practice reveals a fascinating blend of faith and practical therapy, where the dream state was the essential medium for a divine physician's consultation. Yet not all Greeks viewed dreams through this mystical lens. A profound intellectual shift was occurring. The philosopher Aristotle, in his work on dreams, proposed a startlingly modern and skeptical theory. He argued that dreams were not messages from the gods, but were generated internally by the human body and mind. He suggested they were faint afterimages of our waking sensory experiences, echoes that resurfaced as we slept. A person who had been gazing at the sun all day, he reasoned, might later dream of bright flashes of light. For Aristotle, dreams could sometimes indicate bodily states, like a feverish person dreaming of fire, but they held no prophetic power. This physiological view stood in stark contrast to the deeply religious practices at the Asclepiae. Bridging these two worlds, the mystical and the practical, was a man named Artemidorus of Daldes. Centuries after Aristotle, he compiled the Wonera Critica, or the Interpretation of Dreams, a massive encyclopedia that became the most influential dream manual of the ancient world. Unlike temple priests who focused on divine messages, Artemidorus wrote for everyday people, merchants, soldiers, and politicians. His approach was remarkably systematic. He categorized dreams into two main types: the somnium, which was symbolic and required interpretation, and the insomnium, which were straightforward products of daily anxieties and had no predictive value. His book is filled with thousands of specific symbols and their meanings, often tied to the dreamer's personal life and social status. For example, he writes that dreaming of losing teeth might predict the loss of a family member for a common person, but for a politician, it could forecast the loss of supporters or reputation. Artemidorus believed context was everything. The same dream of an eagle could mean victory for a general, but a lawsuit for a farmer. His work represents a democratization of dream interpretation, moving it from the exclusive domain of priests and philosophers into the hands of ordinary citizens trying to navigate the uncertainties of their own lives. So within Greek culture, we see the dream pulled in three directions: as a channel for divine healing, a subject of scientific skepticism, and finally, as a practical guidebook for daily living. The Roman approach to dreams was less about personal healing and more about raw political power. While they absorbed much from Greek philosophy and medicine, the Romans perfected the art of using dreams as tools of statecraft and propaganda. For them, a dream was not just a private omen. It could be a public weapon, a divine endorsement to be wielded in the fierce arena of politics. No story illustrates this deadly seriousness better than the one that unfolded in the home of Julius Caesar on the night before the Ides of March. According to historians like Plutarch, Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, was tormented by a horrific nightmare. She dreamed that the pediment, the ornamental top of their house, had collapsed, and she saw her husband bleeding in her arms, murdered. This was a classic Roman bad omen, a direct warning from the gods. Terrified, Calpurnia begged Caesar not to go to the Senate that day. He was initially swayed, but his political rivals, led by Brutus, mocked his superstition and persuaded him that staying home would look like cowardice. Caesar dismissed the dream, walked into the Senate, and met his fate. This tragic tale cemented in the Roman consciousness the immense consequence of ignoring a prophetic dream, especially one concerning the fate of the Republic itself. It framed dream interpretation not as a scholarly exercise, but as a matter of life, death, and historical destiny. Yet dreams were also used to construct grand philosophical narratives. A generation before Caesar's death, the statesman Cicero penned a work called On the Republic, and within it, he included a profound fictional vision known as the Dream of Scipio. In this story, the Roman general Scipio Aemilianus dreams he is lifted high above the earth by the spirit of his grandfather. From this celestial vantage point, he sees the planet as a tiny, fragile sphere, and hears the music of the spheres, the harmonious sound produced by the motion of the planets. His ancestor explains the structure of the cosmos and reveals that the true reward for a virtuous life on earth is an eternal place for the soul among the stars. This dream was not a prediction, it was a vehicle for Cicero's Stoic and Platonic philosophy. It used the compelling format of a dream vision to teach lessons about the insignificance of earthly glory, the immortality of the soul, and the moral duty of a statesman. It showed Romans that a dream could be a framework for contemplating the universe itself. Perhaps most shrewdly, Roman emperors learned to manufacture and publicize dreams for pure political gain. The first emperor, Augustus, masterfully crafted a narrative of divine favor, and dreams were central to his propaganda. Official histories reported that before the critical Battle of Philippi, Augustus's rival, Marcus Brutus, was visited in his tent by a terrifying evil spirit. Meanwhile, Augustus himself, who was ill, was warned in a dream by his doctor to flee his camp. He did so, and just in time, for the enemy overran it. The message was clear: the gods protected Augustus and abandoned his enemies. Another story claimed his mother, Asia, dreamed that her womb was touched by a divine serpent, and that Apollo himself later visited her in the form of a snake, signaling Augustus's semi-divine conception. These were not private family stories. They were broadcast across the empire on coins and in histories, carefully curated myths designed to legitimize his unprecedented power by painting it as preordained by the gods. For the Romans, a dream could be a warning to heed, a philosophical lesson to learn, or most effectively, a political tool to secure an empire. The Roman emperors used dreams to build political power, but within the pages of the Hebrew Bible, dreams became the very architecture of destiny. Here, dreams were not tools for personal ambition, but direct channels for a single, sovereign God to communicate his will, shape history, and test the faith of his people. The biblical worldview presents dreams as a sacred language, one that only a chosen few, endowed with divine insight, could truly decipher. This tradition established dream interpretation not as a scholarly skill, but as a prophetic gift, a clear sign of God's favor and intervention in human affairs. Two figures stand as the supreme masters of this art, their stories forming the cornerstone of Judeo-Christian dream interpretation for millennia. The first is Joseph, the dreamer whose own visions nearly got him killed. As a young man, Joseph dreamed of his brother's sheaves of grain bowing down to his, and of the sun, moon, and stars doing the same. These were transparent prophecies of his future authority, and they sparked such jealousy that his brothers sold him into slavery. Yet this misfortune set the stage for his greatest triumph. In an Egyptian prison, Joseph correctly interpreted the dreams of two fellow inmates, the royal cupbearer and baker, predicting restoration for one and execution for the other. This reputation eventually reached a desperate pharaoh who was haunted by two terrifying, repetitive visions. In one, 7 sleek, fat cows emerged from the Nile, only to be devoured by 7 gaunt, ugly cows that came up after them. In the second, 7 plump heads of grain were swallowed by 7 thin, scorched heads. Pharaoh's own wise men and magicians were utterly baffled. The dreams defied their symbolic manuals. But Joseph, brought from the dungeon, offered a revolutionary explanation. He declared that the two dreams were one and the same message from God. The 7 fat cows and 7 good heads of grain represented 7 years of unprecedented agricultural abundance in Egypt. The 7 lean cows and 7 withered heads represented 7 years of severe famine that would immediately follow. A famine so devastating it would consume all the surplus and bring the land to ruin. Joseph's interpretation did not stop at prediction. It included a divinely inspired plan of action. Appoint a wise administrator to store 1/5 of the harvest during the plentiful years to serve as a reserve during the famine. Pharaoh recognized the Spirit of God within Joseph and made him that administrator, second only to Pharaoh himself. This story established a crucial template. A true dream from God requires a God-inspired interpreter. The meaning is not found in a personal symbol dictionary, but is revealed as a gift to guide and save nations. Centuries later, in the court of another powerful monarch, the pattern repeated with even higher stakes. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar had a dream so disturbing it robbed him of sleep, yet he refused to tell his advisors what he had seen. He demanded they not only interpret the dream, but first tell him its contents, proving their supernatural insight was genuine. Failure meant death. When all his Chaldean magicians and astrologers failed, the task fell to Daniel, a young Hebrew exile. After prayer, Daniel received the dream's details and its meaning in a night vision from God. He stood before the king and described the dream, a gigantic, dazzling statue with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet a mixture of iron and clay. Then a stone, cut not by human hands, struck the statue's feet, shattering the entire structure into dust, and the stone grew into a mountain that filled the whole earth. Daniel's interpretation was a sweeping prophecy of empires. The head of gold represented Nebuchadnezzar's own Babylonian kingdom. The silver, bronze, and iron symbolized successive, inferior empires that would rise and fall after him. The mixed iron and clay feet indicated a final, divided kingdom, partly strong and partly brittle. The stone that destroyed the statue and became a mountain represented an eternal kingdom established by God himself, which would ultimately crush all human empires and endure forever. This interpretation framed history itself as a divine narrative revealed through a dream. It showed that God holds the ultimate authority over kings and kingdoms, using dreams to unveil his sovereign plan across ages. These foundational stories shaped a lasting legacy. In the biblical tradition, dreams became primary vehicles for divine prophecy and solemn warning. They were encounters where God revealed future events, issued moral corrections, and solidified covenants. This established a clear distinction. Dreams could be mundane, but a true prophetic dream carried divine authority and required an interpreter chosen by God. The gift was not in clever analysis, but in faithful reception. This perspective would deeply influence later Christian and Islamic dream traditions, forever linking the nocturnal vision to the possibility of direct transcendent communication, a mystery where a sleeping mind might briefly touch the mind of the divine. In ancient China, the dream was a nightly journey of the soul. While Western traditions often saw dreams as messages from external gods, Chinese philosophy framed them as internal voyages, the wanderings of a person's own spiritual essence. This view was rooted in a complex understanding of the human spirit, divided into two primary components, the hun and the po. The po was the earthly soul, associated with the body and physical sensations which dissipated upon death. The hun, however, was the ethereal, conscious soul, linked to breathe and the higher mind. During sleep, it was believed the hun could temporarily leave the body to travel, encountering spirits, ancestors, and glimpses of possible futures. A dream, therefore, was the record of the hun's adventures. This made sleep a delicate state, for if the hun wandered too far or encountered malevolent forces, it might not return, resulting in illness or even death. This philosophical foundation made dream interpretation a vital practice for maintaining balance and health, a concept deeply woven into the broader Chinese worldview of yin and yang and the harmonious flow of kai, or life force. This practical need to decode the soul's travels led to the creation of formal dream manuals. The most famous and enduring is Zhu Gong's Dream Dictionary, a text attributed to the Duke of Zhou, a revered cultural hero and sage from the early Zhou dynasty over 3,000 years ago. Though likely compiled centuries later, its attribution to such a wise figure granted it immense authority. This dictionary functioned as a guidebook for the perplexed dreamer, cataloging thousands of specific images and events and prescribing their meanings, which often revolved around central themes of luck, health, wealth, and social relationships. The interpretations were rarely straightforward, however. They reflected the fluid, symbolic thinking characteristic of Chinese philosophy, where a single image could contain multiple, even contradictory meanings depending on context. For example, to dream of a snake was profoundly ambiguous. On one hand, the snake, a creature that hides in shadows, could represent a hidden enemy plotting against you. On the other, its sinuous shape resembled ancient Chinese strings of coin currency, so the same dream could predict an unexpected influx of wealth. The true meaning depended on the dreamer's circumstances and the specific details of the vision. Was the snake attacking or simply gliding by? Was it in your home or in a wild place? These interpretations were not random. They were deeply informed by Taoist and Confucian principles. Taoism, with its emphasis on the natural flow of the Tao and the interplay of yin and yang, saw dreams as reflections of this cosmic balance. A chaotic, frightening dream might indicate a blockage or imbalance in one's kai, a sign that the natural harmony within was disturbed. Confucianism, focused on social order, filial piety, and ancestral respect, shaped how dreams were understood in a family context. A dream of a deceased parent was not merely a memory, it was potentially a visitation. The ancestor might be offering guidance, expressing a need, or showing disapproval of a family member's actions. Such a dream demanded attention, often leading to rituals of respect at the family altar, offerings of food, and the burning of incense to honor and appease the ancestral spirit. In this way, dream interpretation served as a bridge between the living and the dead, reinforcing the Confucian ideal of a continuous, respectful lineage. A dream could be a diagnostic tool for a Taoist seeking harmony, and a moral compass for a Confucian upholding family duty, all within the same cultural framework. The ancient Chinese did not separate the spiritual from the practical, the philosophical from the everyday. A dream about a fallen tree might speak to a decline in one's vitality, a warning about a family member's health, or a metaphor for a lost opportunity, its meaning shimmering with layers of possibility, waiting for a wise mind to discern which thread of the soul's journey was being revealed. The soul's wanderings in China were seen as internal journeys, but in the ancient forests of India, dreams were understood as profound revelations about the very fabric of reality itself. Within the vast philosophical system of the Vedas and Upanishads, the dream state, known as svapna, was not a mere curiosity. It was one of the fundamental states of human consciousness, as real and significant as waking life or deep sleep. This tripartite model, waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep, was explored as a pathway to understanding the true self, the Atman. Ancient Indian sages meticulously classified dreams, not to predict the future for kings, but to diagnose the state of the seeker's own mind and spirit. They identified distinct categories. Some dreams were seen as purely physiological, caused by bodily imbalances or undigested food. Others were psychological, born from the day's residual thoughts and desires, the swirling impressions known as samskaras. But the most significant category was the spiritual or prophetic dream, a vision granted from a higher reality, a glimpse beyond the veil of everyday illusion or maya. A key text that explores this in breathtaking depth is the Yoga Vasistha, a monumental philosophical dialogue. In it, the sage Vasistha instructs Prince Rama using intricate stories and parables, many of which revolve around dreams to illustrate a radical point. The entire waking world possesses the same essential reality as a dream. One famous parable tells of a king named Lavana. He sits on his throne and watches a passing ascetic sprinkle water on him. In that moment, the king falls into a trance and lives an entire other lifetime. He becomes a low-caste hunter in a distant land, marries, has children, suffers loss, and eventually dies an old man. Then he wakes up on his throne, the entire saga having passed in less than an hour. The water from the ascetic was still damp on his clothes. The text asks a shattering question: which life was more real? His hour as a king or his decades as a hunter? The lesson is that both the waking state and the dream state are constructions of consciousness, one no more fundamentally real than the other. This was not meant to dismiss life as meaningless, but to liberate the seeker from excessive attachment to its fleeting dramas. If even a king's life could feel as real and binding as a dream, then perhaps one's own suffering and desires were also malleable, also subject to a higher understanding. Therefore, analyzing one's dreams became a crucial spiritual practice. A recurring nightmare might reveal a deep-seated fear or a karmic imprint needing resolution. A luminous, peaceful dream could indicate progress in meditation. The ultimate goal was to awaken to the fourth state, Turiya, a state of pure consciousness that witnesses and transcends the other three, the silent awareness behind the dreamer, the sleeper, and the waking person. In this view, every night's sleep was a laboratory of the soul, offering direct experience of the mind's power to create entire worlds, and thus a powerful hint that the world we perceive when awake might be a collective dream from which we are meant to awaken. Across the vast Siberian tundra, a shaman drums beside a flickering fire, her consciousness slipping through a crack in the world. For countless indigenous and animist traditions, from the Arctic to the Amazon to the Australian outback, the dream was not a puzzle to be decoded, but a landscape to be entered. Here, the ultimate dream interpreter was not a priest in a temple or a scholar with a clay tablet, but the shaman, the medicine person, the one who could walk willingly between worlds. In these cultures where every rock, river, and animal possesses a living spirit, dreams were understood as literal journeys. When you slept, your soul did not simply generate metaphors, it actually traveled into the vibrant, consequential realm of the spirits. This was not a matter of belief, but of direct experience and practical necessity. The shaman was the community's designated traveler, the one trained to navigate this terrain with purpose. Through rhythmic drumming, chanting, or the use of sacred plants, they would enter a controlled dream state, a trance, to go where others could only wander by chance. Their mission was urgent: to retrieve a lost soul causing illness, to negotiate with the spirit of the game animals so the hunt would be successful, or to seek counsel from ancestral guides about a coming storm or a conflict with a neighboring tribe. The dream was a diplomatic summit with the forces that governed daily survival. For individuals, this connection was often forged through a profound rite of passage, the vision quest. A young person would be sent into the wilderness alone, often to a high mountain or a deep forest, armed with nothing but a blanket and a prayer. Through fasting, exposure, and focused intention, they would seek a guiding dream or vision. This was not a passive hope, it was an active summoning. The vision that came, perhaps of a soaring eagle or a steadfast bear, was not a symbol to interpret later, it was a direct encounter. That animal spirit would become their personal guardian, its qualities and wisdom imprinted on their identity, offering lifelong protection and guidance. The content of these dream journeys was immediately actionable knowledge. If a hunter dreamed of a caribou spirit showing him a specific valley, the tribe would go to that valley. If a healer in her dream travels saw a particular plant glowing with energy, she would seek it out upon waking, knowing it held curative power. Dreams revealed the location of water in a drought, diagnosed the spiritual cause of a disease, or foretold the movement of enemy groups. In Aboriginal Australian traditions, the dream time is not about sleeping. It is the eternal, foundational reality from which the physical world sprang. The songs, stories, and ceremonies that map the land are believed to have been received in dream-like states by ancestral beings. To dream of a particular waterhole or a kangaroo is to connect directly with that creative essence, reinforcing one's bond to country and responsibility to maintain its sacred lore. In these animist worldviews, there was no sharp line between the spiritual and the practical, the dream and the waking world. One flowed into the other. A dream was a report from the front lines of reality, a vital source of intelligence gathered by the soul in its nocturnal travels. The community's well-being depended on listening to these reports, and the shaman was their most trusted correspondent, returning from the spirit world with knowledge that could mean the difference between life and death for the entire tribe. The shaman's journey into the spirit world was a direct experience, but in the bustling cities of the Islamic Golden Age, dream interpretation evolved into a sophisticated scholarly discipline. Between the 8th and 13th centuries, as the Abbasid Caliphate became a global center of learning, scholars undertook a monumental project to translate and synthesize the knowledge of the ancient world. In the legendary House of Wisdom in Baghdad, teams of translators pored over Greek, Persian, and Indian texts, including the works of Aristotle and Artemidorus of Daldes. They did not simply copy these works, they engaged with them, tested them, and wove their insights into the rich tapestry of Islamic thought, which held its own deep reverence for dreams. The Quran itself mentions divine communication through dreams, and the Hadith, the recorded sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, contain numerous references to truthful visions. This fusion of classical philosophy and revealed scripture gave birth to a new, rigorous science known as Ilm al-Tabir, the science of dream interpretation. It was no longer just a mystical art or a political tool. It was a field of study with its own methods, principles, and authoritative texts, applied in courts, clinics, and homes across the Muslim world. The most famous name in this tradition is Muhammad ibn Sirin, an 8th century scholar from Basra whose monumental work, Tabia al-Roya, or the Interpretation of Dreams, became the definitive manual for centuries. While the book was compiled by his students after his death, it carries the weight of his piety and scholarly reputation. Ibn Sirin's approach was systematic and deeply contextual. He built upon the framework of Artemidorus but infused it with Islamic spirituality and social norms. His manual is an exhaustive catalogue, but it constantly emphasizes that a symbol's meaning is not fixed. It shifts based on the dreamer's faith, profession, and personal circumstances. For a pious person, dreaming of drinking milk might signify acquiring religious knowledge, while for a merchant, it could mean pure profit. This attention to individual context made the science both more personal and more complex. Central to this Islamic science was a crucial three-part categorization of dreams, a taxonomy that helped determine a vision's origin and validity. The first and most revered type was the Raya, a true dream. This was understood as a clear message from God, often seen by prophets and righteous people, and it was considered 1/46 of prophecy. These dreams were typically clear, memorable, and left a feeling of peace upon waking. The second category was dreams from the self, hadith nafs. These were the psychological dreams born from one's own thoughts, worries, desires, and memories of the day. A scholar stressed about an exam might dream of failing it. A hungry person might dream of a feast. These were not prophetic, but they were useful for self-reflection, revealing the state of one's own soul. The third type was the devilish dream from Shaitan. These were meant to cause fear, confusion, or temptation, often featuring disturbing, illogical, or lewd imagery. The recommended response was to spit lightly to one's left 3 times upon waking, seek refuge in God, and never speak of the dream to anyone, thus depriving it of power. This tripartite system provided a practical filter for every Muslim, a way to navigate the nightly flood of images with discernment. Within this framework, dream interpretation was applied with remarkable breadth. Physicians like the polymath Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, incorporated dreams into medical diagnosis, believing that certain recurring dreams could indicate specific bodily humors being out of balance. Judges might consider the symbolic content of a dream as supporting evidence in complex legal cases, and for the common person, consulting a dream manual or a respected interpreter was a routine part of navigating life's uncertainties, from business decisions to marriage prospects. The dream was a nightly missive, and the science of tabia was the key to decrypting whether it carried divine guidance, a mirror to the self, or a mere whisper from the shadows. The Islamic Golden Age systematized the dream, but in the candlelit cathedrals and shadowed villages of medieval Europe, the nightly vision became a terrifying battleground. Here, the Christian mind was torn between 2 powerful, opposing forces: the enduring hope for divine revelation and a paralyzing new fear of demonic deception. This tension would transform the simple act of dreaming from a spiritual opportunity into a potential heresy, pushing its interpretation to the dangerous fringes of society. The older prophetic tradition never fully vanished. It lived on in the radiant visions of saints and mystics, those holy men and women whose extreme piety seemed to crack open a window to heaven. A nun like Hildegard of Bingen in the 12th century received dazzling, complex visions that she transcribed as divine instruction, complete with intricate illustrations of celestial wheels and fiery lights. Her dreams and trances were sanctioned because they reinforced church doctrine, offered moral guidance, and came from a person of unquestioned virtue. They were seen not as personal fantasies, but as sacred broadcasts, a continuation of the biblical model where God spoke through chosen vessels. For the average devout Christian, however, the path was far less clear. Could their own strange dream be a message from God, a warning from an angel, or was it something far more sinister? This doubt was actively cultivated by a church increasingly focused on defining orthodoxy and rooting out deviation. Theologians like St. Augustine had already expressed caution, suggesting most dreams were products of the body or the mind's own churning. But by the late Middle Ages, this caution hardened into deep suspicion. The prevailing view among church authorities was that during sleep, when the rational mind and will were dormant, the human soul was left vulnerable, a fortress with its gates unguarded. This was the perfect moment for demonic infiltration. A vivid, sensual, or frightening dream was increasingly interpreted not as a psychological event, but as an actual assault by a devil, a succubus or incubus, sent to tempt, corrupt, or implant blasphemous thoughts. The dream itself became evidence of one's spiritual vulnerability, or worse, one's secret complicity with dark forces. This fear reached its fever pitch with the publication of the notorious Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, in 1487. This manual, for which hunters explicitly linked vivid dreams with witchcraft, it stated that demons could conjure illusions in sleep so powerful they felt utterly real, and that witches themselves claimed to travel in their dreams to attend the satanic Sabbath. To speak openly of such a dream was to risk accusation, torture, and a fiery death at the stake. Consequently, the ancient public practice of dream interpretation did not disappear, it went underground. It survived in two parallel streams far from the eyes of the clergy. The first was in the realm of folk magic and whispered village wisdom. Cunning men and wise women, operating on the margins of Christian practice, kept alive a patchwork of older pagan and practical lore. They might interpret a dream of losing a tooth as a sign of a coming death in the family, or a dream of flying as an omen of future success, blending superstition with observed human experience. The second stream flowed into secret, handwritten books. In locked chests or hidden compartments, one might find grimoires, books of magical knowledge, or cheaply printed almanacs that included dream dictionaries alongside weather predictions and herbal remedies. These texts were often crude, contradictory, and circulated in secret, a testament to a persistent human need to understand the night's mysteries, even at great personal risk. To consult such a book was a clandestine act, a private rebellion against a doctrine that said your dreams were either meaningless or damned. So the medieval dreamer was left in a profound dilemma, caught between the luminous visions of the saints and the terrifying whispers of the witch hunters. The dreamscape was no longer a bridge to the divine. It was a minefield where every strange image could be a stepping stone to salvation or a trapdoor to the inferno. This oppressive atmosphere would force the quest for meaning into hiding, where it would simmer for centuries, waiting for a new age to bring it back into the light. The oppressive shadow of medieval suspicion began to lift with the dawn of the Renaissance, a period of explosive rediscovery that turned its gaze back to the classical world. In dusty libraries, scholars unearthed the works of Artemidorus and the Greek philosophers, and a thrilling idea resurfaced that dreams could be a source of wisdom beyond the reach of demons. This was not a simple revival, however. The Renaissance mind, intoxicated by human potential and the mysteries of nature, wove these ancient threads into a magnificent new tapestry, blending classical theory with art, alchemy, and hermetic magic. The dream was no longer just a battleground between heaven and hell. It became a studio for the soul, a laboratory for transformation, and a mirror reflecting the newly celebrated depths of the individual self. Artists became some of the era's most profound dream interpreters, not with words but with pigment and line. They painted visions so dense with personal and universal symbolism that the canvas itself became a dream to be decoded. Consider Albrecht Dürer's famous engraving, Melancholia I. It depicts a brooding winged figure surrounded by a chaotic array of objects, a geometric solid, a magic square, scattered tools, a sleeping dog, and a hauntingly dark sky. This was not a literal scene, it was a visual representation of a state of mind, the creative melancholy of the artistic genius stuck in a paralysis of thought. Dora was externalizing an internal landscape, inviting the viewer to wander through the symbolic clutter of a troubled, dreaming intellect. Similarly, the nightmarish panoramas of Hieronymus Bosch, like the Garden of Earthly Delights, presented dream-like realms of surreal creatures, bizarre hybrids, and allegorical pleasures and punishments. These paintings functioned as massive public dream manuals, depicting the fantastical and often terrifying imagery that could populate the sleeping mind, challenging viewers to find their own meaning within the chaos. For the artist, the dream state became a direct source of inspiration, a wellspring of imagery that bypassed rational thought to tap into something deeper and more mysterious. This artistic exploration ran parallel to a more esoteric quest, that of the alchemists. For these proto-scientists and mystics, dreams were not mere subjects for art, they were essential tools in the great work, the search for the philosopher's stone and the transformation of base matter into gold. The most influential figure here was Paracelsus, a brilliant and bombastic Swiss physician and alchemist. He radically proposed that dreams were a vital source of knowledge, a direct line to what he called the astrum, or the inner star within each person which held perfect knowledge of all things. Paracelsus believed that in sleep, when the clutter of the senses faded, this inner star could perceive the hidden truths of nature, diagnose diseases, and even reveal the formulas for alchemical processes. He encouraged his students to keep meticulous dream journals, not to predict the future, but to receive guidance for their experiments and healing practices. A dream about a specific plant, for instance, might indicate its medicinal property. A vision of a particular chemical reaction could guide an alchemical procedure. In this framework, the dream was a key to unlocking the secrets of the external universe and, more importantly, the internal universe of the self. The alchemical process of turning lead into gold was also a metaphor for spiritual purification, and dreams were the cryptic instructions for that personal transformation. This era, therefore, constructed a crucial bridge. The Renaissance dreamers stood at a crossroads. One path still led back to the old world of divine prophecy and demonic fear. But the new paths, illuminated by art and alchemy, pointed inward toward psychology and upward toward creative genius. The interpretation of dreams began its slow, profound shift from answering the question, "What do the gods demand of me?" to a more intimate and complex inquiry. What do these visions reveal about the hidden landscape of my own mind, and what creative power might they hold? But the Renaissance's dream studio could not withstand the cold, clear light of reason. The 17th and 18th centuries, the age of enlightenment, brought a revolution in thought that sought to sweep away the shadows of superstition and build a new world order on the unshakable foundation of logic and empirical evidence. In this bright new dawn, dreams were not mysterious messages or artistic muses. They were embarrassing relics, the meaningless static of a poorly tuned machine. Rationalist philosophers, armed with skepticism, launched a direct assault on the very validity of the dreaming experience. René Descartes, in his quest for a single, indubitable truth, famously used the dream state to demonstrate the unreliability of the senses. He argued that because dreams can feel as real as waking life, we can never fully trust our sensory perceptions. But having used the dream to make his philosophical point, Descartes then dismissed its content as trivial, a mere confusion of the animal spirits in the brain. This set a powerful precedent. For the new men of science, dreams were not a window into another world. They were simply the froth of the memory, as the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes described them, the random, fading echoes of the day's impressions, stirred up by the body's physical processes during sleep. A dream about a dragon was not a symbol, it was just a misfiring memory of a storybook illustration combined with indigestion. This scientific materialism sought to explain everything through mechanics and chemistry, leaving no room for spirits, souls, or symbolic meaning in the night. Consequently, the ancient and intricate art of dream interpretation was not just questioned, it was actively marginalized and ridiculed. To consult a dream dictionary or speak of a prophetic vision was now a mark of ignorance, a sign that one clung to the childish superstitions of a darker age. The dream interpreter, once a revered priest or a sought-after scholar, was recast as a charlatan preying on the gullible. The public, intellectual space for discussing dreams evaporated, pushed into the private realm of personal diary entries and hushed folk beliefs. Yet, even as the mainstream of Enlightenment thought declared dreams meaningless, a fascinating countercurrent began to bubble at the edges of science, one that would prove crucial for the future. There was a growing, if cautious, fascination with altered states of consciousness that seemed to defy simple mechanical explanation. The phenomenon of somnambulism, or sleepwalking, presented a puzzling paradox. Here was a person apparently asleep, yet performing complex, coordinated actions. More dramatically, the practice of animal magnetism, later known as hypnosis, captivated Europe. Pioneered by figures like Franz Mesmer, it involved putting patients into a trance-like state, which he called magnetic sleep. In this state, individuals displayed remarkable abilities. They became insensible to pain, recalled forgotten memories, and sometimes exhibited what seemed like clairvoyant knowledge. The scientific establishment was deeply skeptical of Mesmer's mystical theories about invisible magnetic fluids, but the observable effects were undeniable. What was this strange state if not a kind of waking dream, a bridge between sleep and consciousness? While the magnetist's explanations were eventually debunked, the phenomenon itself kept alive a crucial scientific curiosity. It demonstrated that the human mind was capable of operating in radically different modes where logic was suspended but other faculties might be heightened. These experiments, conducted in the name of science, inadvertently preserved a space for mystery. They provided a legitimate, if controversial, laboratory for studying the very trance and suggestible states that shamans and mystics had entered for millennia. So, while the Enlightenment loudly proclaimed the death of the meaningful dream, it was quietly, almost secretly, laying the precise groundwork for its resurrection. By forcing a focus on observable mental phenomena and altered states, it created the tools and the intellectual climate that would allow a new generation to approach the dreaming mind not with superstition, but with a nascent science of the psyche. The stage was being cleared not for an end to the mystery, but for its most profound reinterpretation yet. The cold rationality of the Enlightenment had declared dreams meaningless, but it was a Viennese neurologist, Sigmund Freud, who would storm the laboratory of the mind and declare them the most meaningful text of all. In 1899, he published a book that would ignite a revolution, The Interpretation of Dreams. Its thesis was as bold as it was simple. Dreams are not random noise, they are the royal road to the unconscious. Freud proposed that our waking mind, our conscious self, is merely the visible tip of a vast psychological iceberg. Beneath the surface lies the unconscious, a seething reservoir of primal instincts, forbidden wishes, and repressed memories, mostly from early childhood, that are too threatening or socially unacceptable to acknowledge. This unconscious material cannot express itself directly, so it disguises itself, using the cover of night and the language of symbols to slip past the mind's internal censor. This process of disguise is what Freud called the dream work. Think of it as a nightly encryption service, taking your most secret, raw desires and scrambling them into a bizarre, often confusing story you can tolerate remembering. He broke this encryption process down into specific mechanisms. The first is condensation, where a single image in your dream, a strange figure or a particular room, actually represents a compressed fusion of multiple people, ideas, or memories. That one unfamiliar face in your dream might be a blend of your father, your boss, and a childhood teacher, all linked by a common feeling of authority. The second mechanism is displacement, where the emotional intensity of a truly disturbing thought is shifted onto a safer, more trivial element of the dream. You might dream intensely about losing your car keys, a manifestly minor worry, as a displacement for a far deeper, latent anxiety about losing your job or your identity. Finally, there is symbolism, where abstract concepts or taboo subjects are represented by concrete images. This is where Freud's theories became most controversial. He argued that much of this symbolism was universal and psychosexual. Elongated objects like towers, snakes, or umbrellas often symbolized the male phallus, while enclosed spaces like boxes, rooms, or caves represented the female womb. To dream of flying might express a desire for sexual release, and to dream of teeth falling out could symbolize castration, anxiety, or fears of powerlessness. For Freud, the bizarre narrative you recalled, the manifest content, was just a facade. The true meaning, the latent content, was a hidden wish, usually of an aggressive or sexual nature, trying to find expression. This framework completely re-centered the purpose of dream interpretation. It was no longer about predicting the future or diagnosing a bodily humor. It was a clinical tool, a form of archaeology for the personal psyche. The goal was to use the dream as a clue, to free associate from its strange images back to the repressed conflicts of the individual dreamer. A patient's recurring dream of being chased through a labyrinth, for instance, was not a prophecy but a potential map of their own internalized fears and childhood traumas, waiting to be traced and understood. While his specific symbols often felt rigid and reductive, Freud's seismic impact was undeniable. He single-handedly dragged the dream out of the realms of superstition and mysticism and placed it squarely on the couch of modern psychology. He made the dream a serious subject of scientific study again, not as a message from gods or demons, but as a profound message from the self. For the first time in centuries, the West had a new, compelling answer to that ancient question: what are my dreams trying to tell me? The answer now was, they are telling you what you have been too afraid to admit to yourself while awake. Freud saw the dream as a locked room holding our personal secrets, but his most famous disciple would unlock a door to a far grander hall. Carl Jung began as a devoted follower of Freud, but their collaborations shattered over a fundamental disagreement about the very nature of the human psyche. For Jung, the unconscious was not just a personal cellar for repressed desires, it was the basement of humanity itself. He proposed the existence of a collective unconscious, a deep, inherited layer of the psyche shared by all people across all cultures and times. This was not filled with personal memories, but with universal patterns and predispositions, which he called archetypes. Think of archetypes not as specific images, but as fundamental psychic blueprints, like deep riverbeds carved by the flow of human experience over millennia. When we dream, according to Jung, we do not just tap into our private history, we connect to this ancient, shared wellspring. The figures that appear are not merely disguised versions of our father or boss, they are manifestations of these timeless patterns. The most critical archetype is the shadow. This is the part of ourselves we reject or deny, our hidden darkness, our untamed instincts, and our unrealized potential. In dreams, the shadow often appears as a frightening figure of the same sex, a stalker in a dark alley, a monstrous beast, or a despised rival. Confronting this dream figure is not about pathology, it is about courage. It is the essential first step in acknowledging the full spectrum of who we are. Then there are the soul images, the anima, the inner feminine in a man's psyche, and the animus, the inner masculine in a woman's. These archetypes connect us to the complementary qualities we need for wholeness. A man might dream of a mysterious, alluring, or perhaps terrifying woman who guides him to a hidden truth or a creative insight. This is not a simple symbol for his mother or a sexual wish. It is his own capacity for intuition, emotion, and relatedness calling to him. For Jung, the purpose of dreams was not merely to expose repressed wishes, but to guide us toward a process he called individuation, the lifelong journey of integrating these disparate parts of the self into a balanced, complete whole. The dream, in this view, becomes a natural healing system, a nightly therapy session from the soul itself, constantly presenting symbols and narratives that push us toward greater self-awareness and integration. This is where Jung's work creates a breathtaking bridge back to the ancient traditions we explored earlier. He saw the proof of the collective unconscious in the stunning parallels between the symbolic language of dreams and the world's myths and religions. The archetypal hero's journey, with its stages of departure, initiation, and return, is not just the plot of ancient epics. It is the very structure of a transformative dream where you are called to an adventure, face a great trial, and return with a new understanding. The mandala, a geometric circle representing wholeness and the cosmos in Hinduism and Buddhism, appears spontaneously in the dreams of modern people seeking inner order and center. For Jung, this was not a coincidence, it was evidence. The same archetypal forces that shaped the myth of the Egyptian sun god Ra crossing the sky in his bark were the same forces that might shape your dream of a brilliant light moving across a vast landscape. The ancient dream interpreters of Mesopotamia and the temple sleepers of Greece were, in a sense, engaging with these very archetypes, though they named them as gods and spirits. Jung provided a new vocabulary, a psychological framework for that eternal conversation. So where Freud's dreamer is a patient uncovering a personal neurosis, Jung's dreamer is an explorer, a mythic hero on a quest within, deciphering symbols that connect their small, individual life to the grand, unfolding story of what it means to be human. Jung's archetypes painted dreams with the brush of myth, but in a Chicago laboratory in 1953, a different kind of story began to flicker across a polygraph's rolling paper. Eugene Aserinsky, a graduate student working under physiologist Nathaniel Kleitman, was monitoring sleeping infants when he noticed something peculiar. Their closed eyelids would periodically flutter with rapid, jerking movements. Intrigued, he and Kleitman began studying adults, wiring them up to an electroencephalograph to measure brain waves and an electrooculograph to track eye movements. What they discovered would cleave sleep in two. They identified distinct cycles, but the most astonishing phase occurred about 90 minutes after falling asleep. The brain waves on the EEG would suddenly become fast, shallow, and chaotic, almost identical to those of a person who was wide awake. The eyes darted back and forth beneath the lids as if watching a private movie. And when they woke subjects during these episodes, the reports were consistent and vivid. "I was dreaming." They had discovered rapid eye movement sleep, and in doing so, they had located the biological home of the dream. For the first time in human history, the mysterious, intangible world of dreams was anchored to a measurable, repeatable physiological state. This was not philosophy or psychology, it was hard science. The dream was no longer just a story told upon waking, it was an observable event in the brain. This discovery flung open the doors to a new era of neuroscience. Researchers could now pinpoint exactly when a person was dreaming and study the brain in that moment. What they found was a paradox, a brain both highly active and strangely disconnected. During REM sleep, the brain's visual and emotional centers, particularly the limbic system which governs fear, pleasure, and memory, light up with intense activity. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the brain's chief executive responsible for logic, self-awareness, and critical judgment, goes quiet. This neural recipe explains so much about the dream experience. The hyperactive limbic system floods us with raw, powerful emotion, that heart-pounding terror of being chased or the pure joy of flying. The dormant prefrontal cortex is why we accept the impossible without question, why we don't stop to wonder how we suddenly teleported to our childhood home, or why we're having a conversation with a talking cat. The brain is in a state of high arousal without its usual captain at the helm. generating a world that feels profoundly real yet utterly illogical. This radical new picture of the dreaming brain led to a theory that directly challenged thousands of years of interpretive tradition. In 1977, psychiatrists J. Allen Hobson and Robert McCauley proposed the activation synthesis hypothesis. Their idea was starkly reductionist. They suggested that during REM sleep, the brainstem, a primitive region at the base of the brain, fires off random, spontaneous bursts of electrical activity. This activation randomly stimulates higher brain areas, including those storing memories and processing senses. The cortex, the thinking part of the brain, then does what it is built to do. It tries to make sense of this internal noise. It scrambles to synthesize a coherent narrative from the chaotic signals, stitching together fragmented memories, sensations, and emotions into the best story it can manage on the fly. In this view, the dream is essentially the brain's cognitive improvisation, a desperate attempt to create meaning from neurological static. That bizarre dream of being late for an exam while wearing mismatched shoes in a flying car is not a symbolic message. It is merely the cortex's best effort to explain random signals about anxiety, body image, and vestibular sensation. The activation synthesis hypothesis was a direct assault on the foundations of Freudian and Jungian thought. It argued that dreams have no inherent psychological meaning, no latent content to decode. They are, in Hobson's famous phrase, the brain thinking in a different chemical state, a side effect of physiology, not a window to the soul. This cold, mechanistic explanation sent shockwaves through the world of dream research. If the activation synthesis model was completely correct, it would render every ancient dream book, every temple incubation, every session on the psychoanalytic couch, a beautiful but profound misunderstanding. It suggested our ancestors were not deciphering divine messages or unconscious truths. They were simply doing what the human mind is wired to do, imposing narrative on chaos, finding patterns in the random sparks of a sleeping brain. The dream, from this perspective, is not a telegram but an echo, a dazzling, confusing byproduct of the brain's nightly maintenance cycle. Yet, even as neuroscience mapped the machinery, the stubborn sense that dreams matter, that they hold a key to our inner lives, refused to be silenced. The laboratory had explained the projector, but the content of the film it played still begged for an audience. The stark reductionism of activation synthesis seemed to declare the mystery solved, but the human mind is not so easily satisfied. Even as we understand the brain's machinery, the profound feeling that dreams are meaningful persists, a quiet echo across millennia. Today, a fascinating synthesis is emerging, where scientists and scholars are not dismissing ancient wisdom but seeking to understand the biological roots from which it grew. This modern approach asks a new question: if dreams are not messages from gods, why does the brain, in its solitary night work, so powerfully generate the feeling that they are? Cognitive psychologists and a field known as neurotheology are now peering into the brains of modern mystics, meditators, and people reporting intense spiritual dream experiences. Using functional magnetic resonance imaging, they observe what happens when someone feels a transcendent connection in a dream or a vision. The findings are revealing. Such experiences often correlate with decreased activity in the brain's parietal lobe, an area responsible for orienting us in space and creating the boundary between self and other. When this region quiets down, the sense of a separate ego can dissolve, leading to feelings of oneness, vastness, or union with something greater, a neurological state that ancient dreamers would have interpreted as a divine encounter. This research does not prove or disprove the divine, but it maps the sacred feeling onto the human hardware, showing how our biology is wired to produce experiences that feel supernatural. It suggests that the prophet dreaming on a mountainside and the lab subject reporting a luminous vision may share a similar neural landscape, their brains temporarily configured in a way that generates awe and a sense of connection. This bridges a vast historical gap, not by saying the ancients were wrong, but by exploring why their interpretations felt so compellingly true. Simultaneously, evolutionary psychologists propose compelling reasons for why we dream at all, functions that align surprisingly well with ancient concerns. One leading theory is memory consolidation, the idea that during sleep, particularly REM sleep, the brain sifts through the day's experiences, strengthening important neural connections and discarding trivial ones. It is a nightly filing system organizing information for future use. Another is threat simulation, where the brain runs rehearsals for dangerous situations in the safety of sleep. That recurring dream of being chased or falling could be an evolutionary training program, honing our instincts for survival without real-world risk. A third function is emotional processing, where the brain metabolizes intense feelings, especially negative ones, by weaving them into narratives. A difficult argument with a friend might resurface in a dream as a symbolic battle, allowing you to process the anger or hurt in a detached symbolic space. These are not prophecies, but they are profoundly adaptive. They help us learn, prepare, and heal. And crucially, they do this work using the brain's native language, narrative, and symbol. This is the profound echo. The ancient Babylonian priest interpreting a dream of a flood as a warning of social upheaval was engaging in threat simulation for the entire kingdom. The Egyptian sleeping in the temple, seeking a healing dream, was leveraging the brain's capacity for emotional and physiological regulation through symbolic suggestion. Their frameworks provided a cultural container for these powerful, innate brain processes. So the modern synthesis offers a compelling middle path. It suggests that while dreams may not carry literal messages from external deities, the human brain is a meaning-making engine. During sleep, it takes the raw material of our memories, fears, and desires, and instinctively sculpts them into stories rich with personal and archetypal symbolism. The urge to interpret, to find a message in the midnight theater, is not a primitive superstition. It is a recognition of the brain's own creative, problem-solving, and integrative work. In seeking meaning, we are collaborating with our own neurology, continuing the most ancient human practice of all, listening to the stories our minds tell in the dark, and wondering what they reveal about the strange, beautiful, and enduring mystery of being awake. The neural pathways of our biology may be universal, but the stories we build upon them are uniquely shaped by culture. In contemporary Japan, a society famed for its cutting-edge technology and rapid modernity, ancient dream traditions do not merely survive, they thrive in vibrant, everyday forms. Here, the deep spiritual currents of Shinto and Buddhism flow seamlessly into the rhythm of modern life, creating a living tapestry where dreams are still consulted as guides, omens, and sources of poetic luck. This is not a relic locked in a museum. It is a practice you can hold in your hands, at temples and shrines across the country. Especially as the new year approaches, you can purchase a small, beautifully printed book called a Yum Cho, a dream dictionary. These are direct descendants of the ancient Assyrian and Chinese dream manuals, yet they are marketed to modern salarymen, students, and families. They offer interpretations for hundreds of common dream images, blending folk symbolism, psychological insight, and traditional spirituality into a practical guide for navigating the year ahead. The act of buying one is itself a ritual, a gesture of hope, and an acknowledgement that the unseen world still whispers to the waking one. This cultural conversation peaks with the celebration of Hatsayum, the first dream of the new year. Falling on the night of January 1st or 2nd, this dream is believed to set the tone and forecast the luck for the entire coming year. It is taken so seriously that people will often place a takara bune, a picture of a legendary treasure ship laden with rice bales and the 7 gods of fortune, under their pillow to invite an auspicious vision. The most famous lucky symbols for a Hatsayum are a set known as Ikai Fuji, Nai Toka, San Nasubai. First is Mount Fuji, Japan's sacred and majestic volcano, symbolizing a lofty goal, unwavering stability, and a beautiful future. Second is a hawk, a creature seen as noble, powerful, and possessing clear, far-seeing vision, representing success and rising above one's circumstances. Third is the eggplant, which might seem puzzling to an outsider. The connection is richly poetic. In Japanese, the word for eggplant, nosu, sounds like the phrase "to achieve success, nosu." But beyond wordplay, the eggplant, thriving and fertile, is also a traditional symbol of fertility and abundant harvest. To dream of these three is to receive a blessing of ambition, clarity, and prosperity. This tradition reveals how dream interpretation in Japan acts as a cultural adhesive, binding the sacred to the mundane. The Shinto belief in kami, the spirits residing in natural phenomena like Mount Fuji, infuses the landscape itself with divine meaning that enters the dream space. Buddhist ideas about karma and the illusory nature of reality provide a philosophical backdrop, suggesting dreams are both meaningful and fleeting, worthy of attention but not attachment. Modern psychology coexists comfortably with this, as people might reflect on a stressful work dream as a sign of anxiety while still hoping for a lucky hatsayum. The persistence of these practices in a hyper-digital society speaks to a profound human need. In a world of relentless change and uncertainty, the dream remains a private, intimate theater where older, slower forms of wisdom can still play out. It is a personal connection to a collective past, a way of measuring one's life against symbols that have resonated for centuries. The salaryman in Tokyo may analyze his dream of a hawk with a smartphone app version of a Yum Cho, but the hope it ignites, the feeling of being touched by a larger pattern of meaning, is precisely what his ancestors sought when they looked to the night sky and wondered what messages their sleeping souls might bring back. Deep in the humid rainforests of the Malay Peninsula, an anthropological story emerged that would captivate the Western world with a radical vision of dream mastery. In the 1930s, an American anthropologist named Kilton Stewart claimed to have lived among the Senoi people, a tribal group, and documented what he described as a sophisticated communal dream culture. According to Stewart's accounts, the Senoi did not merely interpret their dreams, they actively shaped them. From a very young age, children were taught to share their dreams each morning at the family breakfast. This was not casual conversation, it was essential social and psychological training. In this daily forum, every dream was considered valuable, and every dreamer was coached on how to interact with the dream world more powerfully. The Senoi approach, as Stewart reported, had two central proactive principles. First, if you encountered a frightening figure or force in a dream, you were never to flee. Instead, you were instructed to turn and confront it directly. You were to demand that the dream adversary give you a gift, a song, or some form of useful power. The belief was that by conquering fear within the dream, you not only gained strength for yourself, but you also transformed that negative energy into a positive resource for the community. Second, if you experienced something pleasurable in a dream, like flying or enjoying a feast, you were encouraged to consciously pursue it further in subsequent dreams. The goal was to cultivate joy and beauty in the dream state, believing these positive experiences would then manifest as creativity, health, and social harmony in waking life. This was a paradigm where the dreamer was not a passive recipient of visions, but an active explorer and negotiator, responsible for bringing back gifts from the night to enrich the daytime world. Stewart's writings, popularized in the 1960s and 70s, presented the Senoi as having virtually no mental illness or violent conflict, attributing this utopian peace directly to their dream practices. The idea was electrifying, especially within the burgeoning humanistic psychology movement. Thinkers like Abraham Maslow saw in the Senoi model a perfect expression of self-actualization, a way individuals could take charge of their inner narratives to achieve psychological wholeness. It presented dreams not as puzzles from a dark unconscious, but as a creative playground for personal growth, This vision dovetailed perfectly with the nascent lucid dreaming movement. The very concept of becoming aware you are dreaming while still in the dream, and then exerting some control, mirrored the Senoi imperative to confront dream figures and pursue pleasure. Stewart's account provided a cultural and historical precedent that made lucid dreaming seem not like a strange psychic trick, but a lost human skill, a natural ability that could be recovered and trained. Workshops and books began teaching Westerners Senoi-inspired techniques for dream control, framing it as a therapeutic tool to overcome nightmares, solve problems, and unlock creativity. However, the Senoi story is wrapped in significant controversy. Later anthropologists and researchers have questioned the accuracy of Kilton Stewart's fieldwork. Some suggest he may have idealized or generalized practices from a small group, while others point out that no subsequent researchers have been able to fully verify the existence of such a uniform and elaborate dream culture among all Senoi people. The claim of a society free from psychosis and violence due to dream sharing is viewed with deep skepticism. Yet, even if the specific ethnographic details are debated, the cultural impact of the Senoi theory is undeniable. It planted a powerful seed in the modern imagination, the idea that we can have a democratic, daily relationship with our dreams. It shifted the focus from expert interpretation, whether by priest, psychoanalyst, or scientist, back to the dreamer themselves, empowered within a supportive community. It asked a question that still resonates: what if we stopped just analyzing our dreams and started courageously collaborating with them? The Senoi model, whether idealized or not, planted a powerful seed of self-directed dream exploration. But what if you could take that control to its ultimate conclusion, to become fully awake inside the dream itself? This is the promise of lucid dreaming, a state where you know with absolute certainty that you are dreaming while the experience continues around you. It is a paradox of consciousness to be both the dreamer and the witness, the actor and the audience in your own private theater of the mind. While modern science has only recently mapped its neural signature, the deliberate cultivation of this state is an ancient spiritual technology. Its most refined form is found in the high Himalayas, within the esoteric practices of Tibetan Buddhism known as dream yoga or milam. For these practitioners, lucid dreaming was never about fantasy or wish fulfillment. It was a rigorous training ground for enlightenment. The core premise of dream yoga is profound. If ordinary waking life feels solid and real, yet a lucid dream can feel equally solid and real, then what truly is reality? By learning to recognize the dream state as a dream while still in it, the practitioner develops the crucial skill of recognizing the dream-like, impermanent quality of all experiences, including waking life. This is not a philosophical abstraction, it is a nightly exercise. A monk trained in dream yoga would go to sleep with a single pointed intention: to maintain a thread of awareness as the body slips into slumber. Within the dream, he might perform specific tests like trying to push a finger through his palm or reading a line of text twice to see if it changes, actions meant to trigger lucidity. Once aware, the practice deepens. He might consciously choose to transform a frightening demon into a benevolent teacher, or to dissolve the entire dreamscape into pure light, directly experiencing the mind's power to construct reality. The ultimate goal is to carry that lucid, non-attached awareness back into the waking state, to see the world of form and sensation with the same knowing freedom, thereby loosening the grip of ego and illusion. This ancient discipline sought nothing less than to use the dream as a simulator for awakening from the larger dream of samsara. For centuries, this was a secret lineage passed from master to disciple in remote monasteries. Then, in the late 20th century, a series of laboratory breakthroughs brought it into the realm of empirical science. The pivotal moment came when researcher Stephen LaBerge at Stanford University designed an elegant experiment. He had practiced lucid dreamers agree to signal from within their dreams by making a pre-arranged eye movement pattern, left, right, which could be detected by electrodes on their eyelids during REM sleep. They succeeded. For the first time, a person locked in the subjective world of a dream could send a verifiable message to the objective, waking world. This proved lucid dreaming was a real, observable state of consciousness occurring during measurable REM sleep and opened the door to studying it with the tools of neuroscience. This validation sparked a revolution in techniques accessible to anyone. Modern methods demystify the process, focusing on training the mind to recognize dream signs. The most common is the reality check, a habit built during the day where you periodically question your state. Is this a dream? You might try to push a finger through your opposite palm or look at a clock, look away, and look back to see if the time has changed bizarrely. The idea is that this habit of questioning will eventually carry over into your dreams, where the anomaly, like a floating clock or a penetrable hand, will trigger lucidity. Another well-researched technique is mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, or MILD. As you fall asleep, you repeat a mantra-like intention, such as, "The next time I'm dreaming, I will remember that I am dreaming," while vividly visualizing yourself becoming lucid in a recent dream. This targets the prospective memory centers of the brain, programming it to recognize the dream state. Today, lucid dreaming exists at a fascinating intersection. It is a subject of serious scientific inquiry, with studies exploring its potential for treating recurring nightmares, enhancing motor skills through mental rehearsal, and probing the boundaries of consciousness. Simultaneously, it has blossomed as a popular self-help tool, with apps, online communities, and workshops teaching people to fly, create, and explore within their own minds. This revival represents a full-circle moment where an ancient spiritual discipline, designed to reveal the illusory nature of reality, is now being validated and utilized by the very science that once sought to explain dreams away as mere neural static. The laboratory and the monastery, through different gates, are now exploring the same extraordinary frontier, the conscious mind's capacity to know itself even in the depths of sleep. The lucid dreamer's conscious signal from the sleep lab was a message from a new frontier, and today that frontier is in our pockets. We are witnessing the birth of a digital wonderomancy where ancient questions meet modern algorithms. The leather-bound dream journal has been joined, and for many, replaced by sleek smartphone applications designed to catalog the night's mysteries. These are not simple notepads. They are sophisticated tracking tools that invite you to log your dreams each morning, tagging emotions, characters, and symbols with a few taps. Over weeks and months, the app's algorithms quietly work in the background, identifying patterns you might miss. It can generate a report showing that your dreams of being chased spike during periods of work stress, or that symbols of confinement, like locked rooms or narrow tunnels, correlate with feelings of anxiety in your waking life. This data-driven mirror offers a form of mass-produced self-reflection, turning the solitary act of remembering into a quantified self-portrait of the subconscious. It is a powerful tool for noticing the recurring themes that shape our inner narratives, providing a modern, personal version of the pattern recognition that ancient priests once performed for kings. But the logical next step is already upon us: artificial intelligence trained to interpret the symbols themselves. Imagine an AI system that has ingested not only the dream dictionaries of Artemidorus, Ibn Sirin, and Zhu Gong, but also millions of anonymized dream reports, modern psychological studies, and the entire corpus of world mythology. You describe your dream of a crumbling bridge to this digital oracle. In milliseconds, it cross-references the symbol across cultures, perhaps noting that in some traditions, a bridge represents a transition or a decision, while its collapse can indicate a fear of failure or a broken connection. It might ask you clarifying questions about your personal associations with bridges, weaving the universal archetype with your unique psychological data. This promises a kind of supercharged interpretation, a synthesis of millennia of human thought on dream symbolism, delivered instantly. It is the ultimate systematization of meaning, the logical endpoint of humanity's age-old desire to catalogue and decode the night. Yet this power arrives wrapped in profound ethical dilemmas. When you feed your most intimate, vulnerable, and bizarre mental experiences into an algorithm, what happens to that data? Where is it stored, and who owns the narrative of your inner life? The reduction of a dream, that fleeting, deeply personal masterpiece of the mind, to a set of data points for corporate servers feels like a new form of vulnerability. There is a risk of flattening the profound, ambiguous mystery of a dream into a sterile, automated readout, losing the nuanced, intuitive work that gives interpretation its depth. Can an algorithm understand the subtle ache of a dream about a childhood home, or the layered meaning of a symbol that holds a secret joke only you would understand? This digital shift forces us to ask what we might gain in efficiency and what we might sacrifice in soul. Is the AI a new kind of priest, a neutral, all-knowing sage, or is it merely a sophisticated pattern-matching engine that reflects our own collective biases back at us? The emergence of these tools is not a break from tradition, but its latest, perhaps inevitable, iteration. From the clay tablets of Nineveh to the parchment of medieval grimoires, from the printed dream dictionary to the psychoanalyst's notebook, humanity has always sought systems to contain the ocean of dream imagery. The app and the AI are simply our era's clay and parchment. They continue the eternal quest, asking with new technology the same old, beautiful question: what story is my mind telling me tonight, and what can it teach me about the story of my days? These digital tools may seem new, but the symbols they analyze are ancient, echoing across continents and centuries in a silent, shared language. The dream of flying is a perfect example. In ancient Greece, the philosopher Plato wrote of the soul growing wings in dreams, ascending toward divine truth. In the shamanic traditions of Siberia, flying dreams were literal accounts of the soul's journey to the spirit world. For the Senoi, learning to fly in a dream was a primary skill, a way to overcome obstacles and gain perspective. Today, a modern office worker might dream of soaring over city streets, feeling an exhilarating release from daily pressures. Though the cultural explanations differ, the core sensation is universal, a feeling of liberation, transcendence, or escape from earthly constraints. This symbol seems to speak directly to a fundamental human desire, the wish to rise above our limitations, whether they are physical, social, or spiritual. The body's experience during REM sleep, with its paralysis and altered vestibular sensations, might provide the raw neurological material, but the mind instinctively shapes that material into a narrative of ascension. Just as common and far more unsettling is the dream of falling. The Mesopotamian dream books likely catalogued it as a dire omen for the state. In medieval Europe, such a sensation was sometimes called a witch's pinch, attributed to a demon pushing the sleeper. Modern psychology frames it as a classic expression of anxiety, a loss of control or security. The physiological trigger is straightforward. The hypnic jerk, that sudden muscle spasm as you drift off, can easily be woven into a narrative of plummeting from a great height. But the emotional resonance is what unites the experiences across millennia. Whether you are a king fearing the collapse of your reign or a student fearing the collapse of your plans, the dream of falling translates a primal vulnerability into a visceral, nighttime story. It is the psyche's most basic metaphor for failure, shame, or a terrifying surrender to circumstances beyond your command. Then there is the relentless dream of being chased. You are running, hiding, your heart pounding, but the pursuer, be it a monster, a shadow, or an unnamed force, is always just behind you. For our ancestors, this might have been interpreted as a literal warning from a spirit or a premonition of an enemy's attack. In Freud's view, the pursuer could be a manifestation of a repressed wish or fear you are fleeing from yourself. evolutionary psychologists see it as a clear rehearsal of our most basic survival instinct, flight. This dream scenario is a nightly drill for the amygdala, the brain's fear center, practicing evasion in a consequence-free environment. The modern version, where you are chased by a faceless corporation or a looming deadline, is simply the same ancient neural circuitry applying its old programming to new, abstract threats. The content updates, but the core narrative of avoidance and threat remains unchanged. Consider the strangely specific and nearly universal anxiety dream of losing your teeth. In Artemidorus's manual, it could predict the loss of a family member or property. In Chinese dream dictionaries, it might indicate gossip or slander against you. In contemporary Western therapy, it often relates to worries about appearance, aging, or a loss of personal power and the ability to communicate effectively. Why would such a specific bodily image resonate so widely? The answer may lie in a combination of common human experiences. As children, we all lose our baby teeth, a profound physical change tied to growth and vulnerability. Teeth are also essential for nourishment, speech, and even displaying aggression, a smile or a snarl. Their loss in a dream touches on deep, cross-cultural concerns about our vitality, our social presentation, and our fundamental capacity to bite into life. It is a symbol that perfectly marries a universal bodily event with a cluster of fundamental psychological fears. Perhaps the most fluid and powerful of all these shared symbols is water. In the biblical story of Pharaoh's dream, the Nile's condition predicted the fate of a nation. For the ancient Chinese, water represented the flow of Kai and the unconscious mind. In Jungian psychology, water is the quintessential symbol of the unconscious itself, deep, mysterious, and teeming with life. A calm, clear lake might represent inner peace or self-reflection. A turbulent, stormy ocean could symbolize overwhelming emotion or chaos. A rising flood often feels like being engulfed by feelings or circumstances beyond our control. This symbol's power stems from a biological truth. Our bodies are mostly water, and we emerged from it at birth. Our survival depends on it, yet we can also drown in it. Water is, therefore, the perfect natural metaphor for the emotional and unconscious forces that sustain us, shape us, and can potentially overwhelm us. When we line these symbols up, a remarkable pattern emerges. Cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, with no possible contact, have woven strikingly similar meanings around the same core dream images. This is the strongest evidence we have for a universal dream language. From a Jungian perspective, this lexicon arises from the collective unconscious, the shared psychic inheritance of humanity. The archetypes of the shadow, the anima, the hero, they dress themselves in these common symbols to communicate with the individual dreamer. The falling dream is an encounter with the shadow of helplessness, the water dream a dive into the anima of the deep psyche. From an evolutionary standpoint, this shared imagery is a testament to our common biology and fundamental life challenges. Our brains, shaped by the same pressures of survival, reproduction, and social living, use the most direct metaphors available, the body itself and its relationship to the world, to process these universal concerns. Flying, falling, fleeing, losing a vital part of ourselves, navigating deep emotional currents, these are not just dream themes, they are the fundamental coordinates of the human experience. So when you wake from one of these dreams, you are not just recalling a strange story. You are remembering a fragment of a script that has been performed in the minds of countless dreamers, in every era and every corner of the world, a nightly rehearsal of what it means to be alive, vulnerable, hopeful, and human. The universal language of dreams is one of metaphor, but sometimes a dream speaks with chilling, literal clarity. Among the most persistent and haunting threads in our history is the claim of the precognitive dream, a vision that seems to map the future with unsettling accuracy. These are not symbolic warnings, but apparent broadcasts of events yet to come. Perhaps the most famous American example comes from the final days of Abraham Lincoln. In early April 1865, just days before his assassination, the president recounted a strange dream to his wife and a few close friends. He described wandering through the White House, drawn by the sound of weeping, until he entered the East Room. There he saw a corpse lying in state, guarded by soldiers. When he asked who had died, a soldier replied, "The president. He was killed by an assassin." Lincoln awoke deeply troubled by the vividness of the scene. A week later, his own body lay in state in that very room. The coincidence, if it is one, is staggering in its detail. On a broader, more tragic scale, there were widespread reports in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks of people dreaming of plane crashes, towering infernos, and catastrophic collapses in the days and weeks before the event. One woman, for instance, documented a dream of two planes flying directly into two tall glass buildings, a vision so disturbing she shared it with her co-workers a full month before the attacks. These accounts, scattered across time and place, present us with a profound historical mystery. Are they evidence of a fleeting connection to a future not yet written, or is the human mind playing an elaborate, convincing trick on itself? Psychology offers several compelling explanations that do not require a supernatural lens. The first is the sheer mathematics of coincidence. With billions of people dreaming every night, producing countless narratives, it is statistically inevitable that some dreams will randomly match future events. Our brains, however, are not wired to notice the millions of dreams that do not come true. We are built to detect patterns, especially meaningful, threatening ones. This leads to the powerful effect of selective memory. A disturbing dream is forgotten if nothing happens, but if a similar event occurs, the dream is instantly recalled, retroactively imbued with prophetic significance. The memory itself changes, becoming clearer and more detailed in hindsight, as the brain forges a causal link after the fact. Furthermore, our pattern-making prowess is extraordinary. The brain constantly synthesizes information, both conscious and subconscious. A person before September 11th was living in a world of news reports, political tensions, and action movies featuring skyscrapers and disasters. A dreaming brain could synthesize these fragments into a plausible, anxiety-driven scenario that later felt prophetic when reality provided a horrifyingly similar plot. This is not a dismissal of the experience, but an exploration of the mind's incredible capacity to create narratives that feel truth-telling. Yet, when we place these modern anecdotes beside ancient belief, the echo is uncanny. For the Babylonians, the Egyptians, and the biblical dreamers, precognition was not a debate, it was a foundational principle. Pharaoh's dream of famine was a 7-year forecast. Daniel's vision was a blueprint of empires. The entire practice of temple incubation was based on the certainty that dreams could reveal future cures. The modern psychological explanations would have been nonsensical to them, for they operated within a cosmos where time was not a strict line, and the divine could easily peek around the corner. This leaves us not with an answer, but with a richer, more layered question. Has humanity, for millennia, been misinterpreting coincidence and intuition as prophecy? Or have we, in our rational age, constructed elegant explanations for a genuine phenomenon we no longer have the framework to understand? The dream that seemingly tells the future remains one of history's most intimate and unresolved mysteries, a whisper from the night that challenges the very order of time. So where does this leave you, the modern dreamer, surrounded by ancient symbols and scientific theories? The history is fascinating, but the most important dream interpreter has always been you. Engaging with your own dreams is less about decoding a rigid cipher and more about learning a private language, one spoken between your waking self and the depths of your own mind. You do not need a temple or a clay tablet to begin, just a notebook and a few minutes of morning attention. The single most powerful tool is the simple dream journal. Keep it by your bed with a pen or use a voice memo app on your phone. The key is to capture the fragments the moment you wake before the logical mind sweeps them away. Do not worry about writing a novel, just jot down the first images, feelings, or strange phrases you recall, even if it is just felt anxious, something about a blue door. Consistency matters more than volume. This daily act signals to your mind that its nocturnal productions are valued. Over time, you will likely find your recall improves dramatically, as if a forgotten channel slowly comes into focus. As these nightly stories accumulate, resist the urge to immediately open a dream dictionary, ancient or modern. While those texts offer fascinating cultural insights, your primary guide should be your own life. Your personal symbolism is far more precise and meaningful than any universal catalog. For you, a cat might represent cozy independence, while for someone else it recalls a childhood fear. A car might symbolize freedom, or it might be tied to a specific memory of a family road trip. Look for patterns within your own journal. Does water appear when you are feeling overwhelmed? Do school settings emerge during times of performance anxiety? Your mind is using imagery from your unique life to tell its stories. Begin your reflection with simple, open questions. What was the dominant emotion in the dream? Not the plot, but the feeling. Was it exhilaration, dread, curiosity, or sorrow? That emotional core is often the most direct message. Then ask what elements felt familiar. Perhaps a figure had the voice of a friend or took place in your grandmother's kitchen. What felt utterly strange or out of place, like a talking animal or a gravity-defying room? These anomalies are often the mind's creative highlight, pointing to something beyond ordinary logic. This personal practice is, in essence, a modern form of incubation. You are creating a sacred space of attention, just as the Egyptians did in their temple sleep chambers. By recording and reflecting, you are performing the same act of reverence that the scribes of Nineveh did, treating the dream as a text worthy of preservation. You are engaging in the same pattern recognition as Artemidorus and Ibn Sirin, but your reference library is your own lived experience. When you sit with a dream image and ask what it means to you, you are continuing the most ancient human ritual of all, the search for meaning in the mystery. You are not just analyzing a brain state, you are conversing with a story that has traveled through the same neural pathways that have dreamed of flying, falling, and healing for thousands of years. This is not about becoming a prophet or a psychoanalyst. It is about reclaiming a natural capacity for inner dialogue. In a world of constant external noise, your dream journal becomes a quiet map of your interior world, a nightly dispatch from the frontier of your own consciousness. What might you discover when you start to listen? From the clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the glowing screens of our smartphones, this has been an epic journey across the landscape of the sleeping mind. We have witnessed kings trembling at the omen of a raven, Egyptian pilgrims sleeping in stone chambers for a divine prescription, and Freud's patients lying on a couch to trace their dreams back to childhood wishes. We have seen the brain's neurons fire in a laboratory and the soul's journey mapped in a Himalayan monastery. Through every era and every culture, one thread remains unbroken, our relentless, beautiful need to find meaning in the mystery. The lens through which a culture interprets its dreams becomes a mirror for its soul. The Babylonians saw statecraft and divine decree, reflecting a world ordered by capricious gods. The Greeks sought healing and philosophical truth, mirroring their pursuit of balance in body and cosmos. The medieval Christians saw a battleground between angels and demons, revealing a psyche tormented by sin and salvation. Each framework, from Ibn Sirin's tripartite categories to Jung's archetypes, tells us less about the dream itself and more about the dreamer's world, their deepest fears, their highest hopes, and their vision of where humanity stands in the vast scheme of things. We may never fully solve the neurological and existential puzzle of why we dream. Science can map the firing neurons, and psychology can propose theories of memory or threat rehearsal, but the haunting sense of a message, a story, a visitation endures. Perhaps the ultimate meaning lies not in a final answer, but in the timeless act of asking the question. When you pause to wonder about a strange dream from last night, you are participating in a ritual as old as civilization itself. You are reaching across millennia to touch the hand of an Assyrian priest, a Chinese sage, and a Senoi elder, all of whom leaned into the darkness and listened for a whisper. You are continuing the most human of projects, exploring the final frontier that is not outer space, but inner space, the vast and starry night within your own mind. What dreams have visited you that felt like more than just a story? Does your family or culture hold any traditions about dreams passed down through generations? Share your most fascinating nocturnal journeys in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this voyage through the history of our hidden selves, subscribe for more explorations into the world's greatest historical mysteries.